Hello, everybody! Welcome to another episode of Reacting Reddit, where real humans read, react, summarize trending topics, and entertaining content on Reddit. Today's Ask Reddit question is, ladies of Reddit, how did a guy ruin their chances with you? Glowing Red Thorn says, first red flag was how antsy he was to get me on the phone. It was a friend of a friend on Facebook. So angsty, I almost didn't call him. The deal breaker for me was something along the lines of, you're not like most women. You can actually understand the complex subjects that I talk about. Most women are too vapid and dull to compete with my intellect. Click. Barf. Gentlemen, if you have to state you're above average in intellect, you aren't. Hey, actually, I don't know how true that is, because I personally know a lot of people who are really, really, really smart and arrogant assholes. And it's kind of like, if you're smart enough, you can get away with being an arrogant asshole, which kind of sucks. But it means that the most arrogant assholey people, by kind of nature, in order for humans to kind of tolerate them, they have to be pretty smart or pretty wealthy. Maybe they're not smart and they're just wealthy. Totally possible. But basically, if you're just an arrogant asshole and you don't have anything else sort of going for you, so to speak, it ain't that simple. I wish I could have recorded the conversation, because if someone had told me that some dude had told them what this dude told me, I would have claimed bullshit. Like, nah, no dude is that fucking narcissistic and entitled. It was such a shame, too. He was very attractive, and I would have been down to fuck, even if it didn't lead anywhere. That's pretty funny. The Word Shaker says, dang, you just sold me. I've been enjoying our choosing beggars for a while now, just marinating in the knowledge of how shitty humans can be. It's kind of like slum tourism, isn't it? All these subs parading the worst of the worst out by category gives you that nice, at least I'm not that feeling, like Schadenfreude, mixed with moral support for the sufferers. Avatar 86 adds, fun fact, people who are actually smart will realize that other people will be able to recognize that fact on their own. Also, they realize that other people's opinions on your intelligence doesn't matter. I agree with the second part, although people who are smart often are conceited and cocky as well. So I know a lot of smart assholes. I don't know as many smart, benevolent people. And that's just my personal experience, though, which I'm projecting out onto the world as if everybody else lives the way I do and nobody does. So, hey, take it with a grain of big salt, okay? Astalante adds, in my experience, people with intellect above average will try and avoid talking about it to complete strangers. I mean, you can imagine how that comes off, so he or she can too, and won't generally talk about it unless specifically asked or already at a certain level of comfort with the person. Glowing Red Thorns replies, I have considerably bad social anxiety, so I hate when they insist. But it's not the weirdest request, and I sometimes take it as a challenge to try and break past said anxiety to talk on the phone. But after a while, I notice the kind of men that press me for a phone call are usually really weird or huge assholes. I realized it wasn't really me trying to break through my comfort zone, and more me capitulating to manipulate and entitled fuckboys and douchebags. I shouldn't have to feel cornered before even speaking 2 words to somebody. If I don't feel comfortable, I now am firm with declining these kinds of requests, as is my right. I'll figure out other ways to better my issues with socializing that isn't giving in to male chauvinism. Hell yeah! Power to you. The Creep of Death says, my favorite thing about people like this is they don't know one very important fact. Geniuses have gaps. If you're really a genius in some areas, you're a total dweeb in others. But none of these girls bother to find that out, so they make utterly bullshit claims. It's pretty funny. I think you misunderstood. What it sounds like was that he was making a joke, and it's completely normal for guys to want to talk to you. So that was a reply to a comment I didn't read. Apologies. Probably sounded confusing. Toastmaster says, I know, right? I'm not a girl, but I know a few guys who keep saying stuff like, Did you know that I have straight A's to random girls in school, and I'm just there thinking, who the hell starts a conversation like that? I even knew this guy who was advising people to study all the time and read books all the time to get into college and MIT like he was going to. But I've known this guy for 2 years, and he only ever had 2 books in his hands. Hey, don't beat up people who know better than they are, because, there's a phrase, do as I say, not as I do. Nobody's perfect, but we can all often give, an opinion about what you could improve. And as asshole-ish as this reality is, you can actually learn quite a lot if you're able to become a strong enough individual to put aside the offensive bullshit and understand where people are coming from and the way they commonly judge, because once you learn a couple of the trends, you can predict most people's initial behavior and judgments about you. And I don't know, guys, that's fucking useful. Alabauta Charlemagne says, I'm 30, but I look about 20. I've been mistaken for a high schooler since I was about 20. I know many people think I was 18. I mean, people thought I was 20. They thought I was 14 when I was 20. And I was in high school. People thought I was in middle school. A few times, a 16 or 17-year-old someone mistook me for a child in elementary school. It is absolutely staggering the amount of guys who hit on me starting in high school. And when I informed them I was too young for them at whatever age I was, they would be visibly disappointed I wasn't visibly younger. It's creepy enough to hit on a 22-year-old when you're 50. It's unbelievably creepy for a 50-year-old to hit on a 22-year-old and be upset she isn't 16. Also, unbelievably creepy is an 18-year-old hitting on a 16-year-old and being upset she isn't 13. By the time I was early 20s, I had a distrust of every guy who seemed interested in me sexually, because they were actually attracted to me thinking I was an adult, or were they attracted to me because they thought I looked like a not legal teenager? Thank you. I was about to say it's okay, but obviously it's not okay that so many men feel this kind of behavior is acceptable. Anyhow, now I've got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they're usually with me when I'm out anywhere. So that's a cut down a lot on the number of creepy guys who hit on me, which is nice. Even the ones who are okay with a single mom, which I'm not, but whatever, are usually aware enough to realize hitting on someone in front of young children who are in their care isn't particularly appropriate. This reminds me of a handyman who came over to my house to repair my washing machine. He talked non-stop and was a close talker. I hate that shit. Anyway, he was saying that he and his wife are snowbirds, and this is in Florida. I said something like, "Oh, that's nice." The guy gives me a backhanded compliment and says, "You are drop-dead gorgeous compared to my wife. She looks like Jonathan Winters." Like, what is that supposed to mean? He didn't fix my washer either. He told me I needed to order a part which would cost me $50, and I did. And the new part did nothing to repair my washing machine. I ended up having to buy a new washing machine. Wow, that's a shitty experience. Get creepily hit on. Don't get fixed. Candle Butter says, I went out on a date with a guy, and every time I would ask about the details of his job or education, he would say things like, "Let me see how I can dumb it down for you." Or, "I'm sure you won't understand any of this, but..." I was so offended that when the check came, I whipped my wallet out to pay for or split the bill and just be done with it. And he said, "Oh no, I'm sure I can make more than you do, so don't worry." Yeah, that's like the demeaning kind of bullshit. But so, as a guy, I want to point out that, like, yeah, that is really shitty, and I don't want to defend those people, because I hate them as well, but it's also kind of important to understand that a lot of girls do reward that kind of behavior. And I know that that sucks, and I know people hate me for saying that, but guys and girls in the world are often shit. They're often shitty, and they often do selfish, vain, bad things, and girls aren't immune to that, definitely. So there's totally plenty of women out there who have enough insecurities that they will feed into people who paint a worldview where the woman is less and the man is more. And I think it's fucked. But if you just look at men as the reason for that, it takes away 50% of the human population that also contributes to male chauvinism and sexism by enabling that shit and not calling it out. By like tolerating to be with a person who has these qualities, which plenty of us do. We to an extent say they're okay. And there's a lot of people out there right now who are with people who are like this, and they're not going to leave them right now. And they're girls, they're women, you know? So humans, male and female, find ways of fucking each other over. And we shouldn't ever say like, oh, this is the men's fault and this is the woman's fault. Even when we're talking about like sexual things, like, oh, when it comes to this specific experience of females, you could say, oh, it's only relevant to females, but it's not. Males are 50% of the population, and male and female thought interject and influence each other and cause the changes that we see in society. So you can't ever be like, oh, that's a guy thing, that's a girl thing. Like, it's a human thing, and yeah, girls have that experience more, so they're more likely to be that way. But that doesn't mean that they're like that because they're girls. It means that they're like that because they're humans and they had experiences that are more common to girls than to guys. And I hate the shit of how often people just lump things up. They're like, oh, you're being emotional, you're a crazy girl. Or, oh, you're being supportive and calm, you're a guy. And it's like, there's so many girls who are calm and supportive to their crazy neurotic fucking boyfriends. And then there's so many guys who are like emotional as crap, you know? And like, it's never right to say, oh, girls are this way, guys are that way. And that's my tangent for this video. Oprah Rose says, my lady hole just clamped shut. He worked in a lab testing the functionality of their machines. A repair tech, basically. I mean, would I have understood the specifics of his craft? No, I'm not trained in that field. But the overall concept was not hard to grasp at all. This is another time where it's so tricky because, like, yeah, sometimes people are just being assholes, but there's other times where, like, they've tried to explain the things they do for work and the things they're interested in at their work to people, and so often people just get bored or they don't want to listen or they don't understand, and so they've learned to just be like, okay, you know, whatever, like, it's abstract, it's complicated, I'm not going to get into it. You know, there's better ways to say it than like, oh, you're too stupid to understand my amazing intelligence things. But my point's just that humans misunderstand each other all the time, and there's a good chance that some of the people making these comments, they actually weren't that horrible people necessarily. They just said something and came off in the wrong light. Like, me as an individual, I've said things that really hurt people's feelings before, accidentally, and I've fucked up, and I've made mistakes. I've also done things that have drastically changed the quality of life for loads of other people. So I understand that I'm capable of good things, but that doesn't mean that I'm incapable of doing bad things or being misunderstood for the wrong reason. And the world is full of people who are going to kind of judge you and objectify you, and they're going to put all the assholes in their past onto you, and sometimes they're not going to even realize that you aren't like that at all, and they were just projecting something onto you that isn't actually how you are, and they have issues of not being able to get over their past and putting all the abuse from their past onto the people who may treat them well in the future. These are the realities of our human condition, so just come on, try and be a bit more understanding of each other, you know, please, for both of the sexes' sake. Spew Pew Pew says, as with any interaction, I would be caught off guard with the first comment. I would wonder if it really happened. It would take some time to process if it wasn't repeated. Although, by the end, I would have my own reasons why to sever communications permanently after that date. I'd pay to eliminate any chances of expectation of quid pro quo, as I would come to expect with his behavior. It is definitely a valid reason to worry about him paying your tab, and it might be something worth mentioning as to punctuate this termination. He might not respect you and your intelligence, but he will know that you do not trust him enough to come to that conclusion that he is not getting laid. Jackson Fitt says, I've said things similar to, I'm sure you won't understand this line, mostly when it is about the particulars of my job. I think I've said, you may not understand this exactly, but this happened, or something along those lines. But I've never done anything past that extreme. I'm really sorry that happened. Gin Juice says, maybe this is a cultural thing? Where I'm from, what do you do for work is standard introductory conversation, regardless of gender or whether you're on a date. Well, yeah, of course. That's standard conversation everywhere, but it's also standard conversation to generalize and bullshit and dumb it down because most people don't actually want to hear the intricacies of your work details. Like, especially if you're on a date or just a conversation where you're catching up with somebody, in almost all cultures, it's gonna be bad if you immediately respond to explaining all the intricacies of your workday for the next 30 minutes you have available with this person, and then you guys leave and they go along their way. They're not gonna feel fulfilled from you doing that. You know, in human connection, in its nature, like, humans, we lose interest in paying attention after like a couple minutes. That's normal, totally normal. So here we are. Genaissance says, what a strange and bizarre stance. It's an extremely common question, as it's fairly simple small talk that can lead to deeper conversation. At least saying, I'd rather not talk about work now, would be okay. But to consider the date a failure if they ask that is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. There's nothing damn weird about somebody asking about your career. It really depends on the context. Like, yeah, them saying it once is one thing. But if they spend the entire... Like, if I went on a date with a girl and she spent the entire time trying to figure out what I was doing for work, that would make me think that she was very fixated on me needing to be a certain way. And I would probably not talk to the person again. So I'm a person, I would judge that in reality, because I go for people who I feel quite comfortable around, who like, I have anxiety when I'm not around, but when I'm actually around them, I don't feel like it doesn't get worse. I realize that there's things I was thinking about them that were wrong and I was projecting and these things. Whereas a lot of people, like, it gets stressful when you're with them. And fuck that shit. Like, fuck that. I don't care why. I don't care how amazing they are, how much money they earn, or how hot they are. Screw that. I'd rather be with somebody whose positive effect on me right now is going to make me feel loved and supported, because that's going to make me be better. I don't need somebody judging me on how to live my life and putting their burdens onto me. I need a person who loves me and supports me and knows my issues, and we work together to kind of fill in each other's gaps and ultimately love and encourage each other to make the best decisions we each can about our own individual lives. Like, that's the kind of shit those are the people you spend your life with, you know? Why do people spend so much time wanting to be with people where they don't even enjoy the time they have together? Like, come on. That's so fucked up. Fat Freddy Chris says, people like him want it to be about you wanting the money. It justifies their insecurities. He's just not proud enough to actually try to explain his work. To him, it's not a part of himself. And it hurts his ego to think that to you, your job might be important and enjoyable or something to be proud of. That's what I think of from these few comments, anyway. Baby Hazelnut says, one time, a guy got my number while I was at work because he said he was new to the area and we had interests in common. He immediately started texting me how he knew I would be a great girlfriend, how he couldn't wait for me to meet his family. He knew that I walked to work because he had seen me. And one day he texted me something like, I can't believe you haven't been raped yet. Your dad must have really protected you. That's just pretty creepy. I had to very firmly tell him I wasn't interested, and luckily he never tried to bother me at work or anything. Yeah, people saying sensitive shit like that. It depends, because that's actually like, I scoffed at that comment as well, but as I scoff at that, I understand that that kind of humor represents the majority of the people in the world would use that kind of humor. We tend to think that people are much more articulate and professional and respectful because we watch movies, we look at politicians, we look at some of the most articulate and respectable, so to speak, people in the setting where they know they're being watched, and we think that that's how most of the world operates. But it's actually a lot more like the internet. If you actually go out and talk to people in the street and really just focus on breaking down the barriers of the people who are like you and talking to as many people as possible, it's a lot more like the internet. Total Wild West, and people do say a lot of offensive shit. Basically, you can expect most humans to say almost anything and do almost nothing. And that's how most of us are. And we actually live that way. You know, most people talk a bunch of shit. They say things they would never do, both good and bad. They say like, oh, I'd fucking want to kill you. They don't actually mean they want to kill you, but they're saying they want to kill you. You know, they use phrase like this all the time in their everyday day in life. And making a joke about getting raped, as bad as and insensitive as that is, especially in most of the developing world where most humans actually live, that kind of humor would be very, very, very common. So, like, believe it or not, obviously to somebody who's raised in the U.S. or Europe, if you're used to kind of the rights you have, because you have more rights than other people, you have a better experience being a female, being a human than other people do in the world. They have less material than you do. To them, it's more common to make these kind of jokes. It absolutely is more common. Like, for me personally, I live in Nicaragua, and I can tell you that if you said there would be a way to say the line, I believe you haven't been raped yet, your dad must have really protected you, and it be taken well. Like, there's actually a lot of ways you could say that to people here, and they would respect you more from that. And I know that that's fucked, but I'm just pointing out that it's not entirely true. Because if you hate on these basic behaviors that are very common in society and they suck, you just kind of got to be aware that you're hating on something you're probably going to see regularly for a long time. So just be careful, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're choosing to let hatred into you instead of trying to understand. And if you do with one of these subjects, you think that just because somebody says something like this, that means they're a horrible person. Well, like, a lot of the females in the world, they can't walk down the street at night without being scared of being raped. It's not that far-fetched to say something like that in that kind of vulgar humor, because that vulgar humor is quite common in actual humans. A lot of humans go through a lot of hardship. They go through bad things, and they end up developing a vulgar humor of sorts to kind of deal with that. So just, take everything with a grain of salt, right? Yup Dog says, I haven't been raped yet. But it's like Yup Dog says, haven't been raped yet, like it's some rite of passage that old girls go through. Damn, what a douche. Yeah, saying something like that it's definitely, that takes it further. If you were to say that, like that everybody gets raped and it's something that's gonna happen, like it's an inevitability, that's fucked up, definitely. I can't see any way to try and explain the person saying that. I can kind of, devil's advocate somebody saying, oh, how can somebody as gorgeous as you how are you doing that without getting raped? Like, it's fucked up, but a lot of people would actually take that, they would see through the vulgarity and see that take it as a compliment, basically. especially with your dad protecting you line and shit. Like people's, yeah, in developed countries it's different, but in so to speak less developed countries where most humans actually live in the world, right? The majority of humans, like your family is more important to you than your family is in the West. And in the Western ways, you go off and you build your own independent life and you get your own house and your own car. Whereas in most humans' ways, it's like, why the fuck would you do that? We have a family, we have resources. We don't need every individual to have a car because we have a house that we've had in our family for generations. So even when we're plagued or we're running out of work, we still have options. We still have a roof over our heads. We still have each other. Like, that's more like how it works, kind of. Yeah, I realize I'm trying to communicate between the two biggest extremes in the world, which is the wealthy material accessed and the unwealthy non-material accessed. So, yeah, sorry, it's hard to not point out these things for me. Diamonds Are Forever says, that's fucked up. I don't ask for girls' numbers at work because it's unprofessional in my opinion. And all the things he said definitely certified him as a clingy, creepy stalker creep. Super late to this thread, but had to comment because of how appalled I am. And now for our last comment by the artist by night. I went out once with someone who brought a pair of glasses to our first date, and I asked if I would wear them the entirety of our relationship. He already knew I didn't wear glasses, so if he had gone ahead and put in fake lenses for me. When I asked why, he said it was because he always imagined himself marrying someone who wore glasses. Also, he told me that he found those glasses on the floor at the movie theater. Lucky me. Damn. All right, everybody, that's it for now. If you like this kind of content, please do one of the following. Watch another video, like this video, comment, or the Holy Grail, subscribe. Actually, the true Holy Grail isn't subscribe. It's have a Zoom call with us so we can actually talk to you. But, you know, who wants to actually meet and talk to other people on the internet? Psh, psh, ha! You know, and as a side tangent, because this video is over and nobody's going to listen to me right now, so I'll just tell you something. I have another YouTube channel, right? My name's Jack Pittman. I work as a team part of this channel. But on my other YouTube channel, I put my contact information is publicly available, and literally anybody in the world can not only like email me, but they can actually set up a call with me for free for 30 minutes with no contact prior to that. So there's no back and forth. They literally go to a link and click it and pick the time, right? And I can tell you from having this available for 3 years that the vast majority of people will never do more than email you once. It's basically, it works like this. The vast majority of people will never reach out. Of those people who do reach out, the vast majority of them will only reach out once. And of those people who reach out once, the vast majority of them will never be able to have a video call. So by trying to get in touch with people who will actually talk to your face, it's like 1 out of every 100,000 views or something absurd like that. It's quite interesting, really, how much we stand to benefit. And in my life personally, most of my life and most of my benefit has come from using the internet and putting myself publicly available. Yet I still live in a time where the vast majority of people have absolutely no interest in making themselves publicly available. So it's kind of ironic, huh? All right, thanks for watching. See you next time. Ciao.